The James Show Podcast.
Deion Sanders, a Texas football legend. I would say he's been diagnosed with cancer, but we just found out with most of the rest of the world that he had cancer. He was diagnosed, it was treated, he had his bladder removed, he's had a new one constructed in its place, and the cancer thing's in the background. He does have to do a few things a little different going forward. He has to walk around with a couple of bags on his person. He has to wear Depends. He wasn't shy about it either. You know, this was a guy who was so cool in the 90s. That was part of his thing. Yeah, he's got the big diamond earring in his ear, and he's going to fly in a helicopter from the Cowboys game to the Braves game so he can go straight from football to Major League Baseball. He's going to lead the league in interceptions, return for a touchdown, and get second in the league in stolen bases over in baseball. And he was an amazing dude. He putting out rap albums, doing cameos and TV shows and movies. He was just a super cool guy. Well, there's nothing cool about having to wear Depends. Apparently, he can make that sound cool too. And he did it specifically because, look, he knows how old he is. He knows who his peer group is. And he knows there's a lot of other guys who are going through something similar. Women too. I don't mean to be gender specific here. But it's great to see how well he reacts. Because a lot of these people, we have the stereotype that they're just sissy little prima donnas. Well, for a lot of people, they really are. They're really not decent human beings. And they really can't handle the pressure and the fame and the glory and the fortune and the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll. But here's a guy whose second career, he's doing even better than his first one. And I don't mean that to just because I like him better. I mean, he was the highest paid NFL player at the time, but isn't he going to make more out of this next coaching contract than he did in the NFL? But he's also evolved. He is not the same guy. He's now a dad. He's now a granddad. He's not a player. He's a coach. And that's real comforting to see because pop culture and Hollywood likes to focus on the young, cool, hip guys. There's not a whole lot of role models for guys who are going through cancer like this, and how many people go through that. How many people have already been through that? And so it's great to see that sort of maturity. This is the kind of stuff you want your kids to see. But even in his greatest moment of suffering, his message is that he wants to help. This whole press conference, just so he can help.
It ain't about me. It's about y'all. Everything I deal with is like a tool to reach more, to affect more, to challenge more, to love more, to give more. That's what this is about. This ain't about me. Because for me to go through this, the devil had to ask God, have you considered my servant prayer? There's Bible if you don't know. Go ahead and try it. I know he gonna praise me. I know he gonna magnify me. I know he gonna glorify me. And that's what has transpired. So I don't mind going through the afflictions I go through because I know the result. And we helping some folks today. There's some folks right now calling the doctors, scheduling checkups. There's some wives out there say, baby, I told you. It's some whosoever wills that ain't been to see a doctor in years, but they gonna go get a checkup. Because if it could happen to Prime, baby, it could happen to you. That's what they're saying.
Man, what a fantastic message. What about a guy who could be a victim? In the modern culture where victimhood seems to be a moral imperative for some people, this guy's refusing to be a victim even when ultimate victimhood status is put upon him. He almost died. He got the worst disease possible, cancer. He had to have an entire organ removed. He's never going to be the same. He's always going to be. And here he is still being positive. Here he is quoting Job. Have you considered my servant Prime? Man, I am not that enthusiastic to take on the trials and tribulations of this world. I would like for the rest of my life to just be 100% on a velvet pillow. I think myself and the Parkers and our extended family, I think we've suffered enough. But you know what? I bet most people can say that. So when it comes to me, if I ever come across something like this, I hope I can react like Deion Sanders and be a little more positive than I have in whatever slight discomforts I've had. Nothing compares to what he's gone through. So either be a Deion Sanders or be a Randy Moss. Why are you saying Randy Moss? Well, Deion Sanders talks about the people who reached out, made an effort to, if they found out about what was going on, to offer him some support. But here toward the end of the press conference, he really highlighted his friendship with another NFL legend. He's a wide receiver, Randy Moss.
But I'm thankful that they came to give me love and support and to pray for me. DC Youngfly called me this morning, prayed for me. Like, he called it down for heaven. DC, I love you, boy, and I appreciate you. Let me tell you something. Randy Moss called me every other day to make sure I was straight. Randy Moss prayed for me. He and his wife told me what I need to be doing. He's gone through some things very similar. But Randy Moss, man, I love him to life, love him more than ever. I prayed. He told me he's going to come to the game this year. I prayed that. But he gave me so much strength and so much guidance and so much love, respect, and appreciation. Thank you, Randy. I really appreciate you. I really do.
All right, we have 2 lessons from today. If you're going through it, if you have a medical emergency or some sort of condition you're not going to recover from, something you'll never be the same from afterwards, try and be positive. Try and be like Deion. Try and take up the Job attitude. Have you considered my servant Deion? Or if you're not going through it, be a Randy Moss. Just be a good friend to someone who is. We have the other contemplating mortality that comes from the terrible story of the Idaho mass murderer who just got sentenced to 4 life sentences and some change last week. And here's the thing that still bothers you the most. You don't know the motive. And you know why? I don't know the motive either. My next guest may be able to help somewhat with that unease. Her name is Jennifer Coffindaffer. She's a FBI agent with 28 years experience who's now turned to a fantastic media consultant. You may have seen her work on News Nation and elsewhere. Jennifer Coffindaffer, welcome to the James Show. And let's...
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right, first, I'm making a point to not say the name of these psychos, the people that go out and, without a motive. It's not like it was a jilted lover or some sort of, political beef. I assume that this guy is a psycho and he's doing this just for the glory and the name recognition. And so a lot of people hear his name and he gets some sort of glory on his way out. And I think that's one of the little things I can do to reduce the incentive for other psychos to want to act out in a similar manner. Or am I just a crazy person? Does that help any for me to not say his name?
I think it helps. Look, we call him 163214 because that's his number that he was given when he landed at the Idaho penitentiary. So that's sort of how we refer to him now. But essentially, yes, you're right. Certainly part of this stems around wanting to be infamous.
All right. So what do we call this guy, Jennifer? We all just in layman's world call him an absolute psychopath, but doesn't that have a technical meaning and doesn't he reach that?
Yeah, I think he does reach that. Look, from the beginning of this case, many people believe that it was a fledgling serial killer, certainly a convicted mass murderer, killed 4. But I think that was the beginning of his intention. This is a guy who his whole life has been ridiculed and kind of in the back corner. And he wanted to exact revenge, I believe, much similar to a Bundy. And just all his rage came out that night on November 13th.
All right, well, talk about his overlaps with Ted Bundy, because Bruce was telling me that before the show, how he sees a lot of similarities, and I'm not as familiar with the Bundy case. So how is 163264 and Ted Bundy, what do they have in common?
What they have in common is, I think, their modus operandi in terms of the suffering and pain that they inflicted on their victims, the complete randomness, really the manic approach, the stealth approach, and the cover-up. He was very good at covering his tracks. Bundy was like that also. The change of clothes that we believe happened, that also happened with Bundy on some of his murders. Okay,
so that does sound quite similar here. So the next question is there something we can do to recognize guys like this and keep ourselves safe?
Well, I wish there were. He studied under Kathleen Ramsland, who actually wrote the book in some respects on BTK and other mass murderers, and he was right under her nose. He took 4 classes from her, and she was his counselor, and she certainly didn't recognize that he was an issue.
Wait, you act like this was like a ninja learning from his sensei.
Well, a lot of people say that. A lot of people believe that much of what he learned and why he was, in a sense, very good at what he did. Look, he was able to kill 4 in a very short period of time. He almost got away with it, other than his DNA being left on a knife sheath underneath Maddie Mogen, one of the victims.
Well, that seems kind of sloppy. Some of these guys, they put so much thought and effort into it, and then they make a dumb mistake like that.
Yeah, it was, he just didn't secure it to his person, and he didn't expect, I don't believe, Kaylee Gonzalez to be in bed with Maddie Mogen when he attacked Maddie, and a huge fight ensued. She was stabbed over 20 times. She was bludgeoned so severely, she was unrecognizable, and I think in the throes of that fight, the sheath dislodged. Oh,
my God, that is just terrible. We're talking with Jennifer Coffindaffer, former FBI agent, now with News Nation. And in your experience, there's nothing we can really do about these guys until they go on a killing spree. Is that the world we live in, Jennifer?
I think it is. It's good to study them for sure. The FBI has a behavioral analysis unit that is exactly what they do. So we can sort of understand and prevent, I think, or know what to look for once they strike their first time they strike. But essentially, I don't think there's any way to prevent them.
You just got to wait until they get excited enough to actually try and pull one of these off. That's terrible. So how many of these people do you think are out there at any given time, Jennifer?
Oh, I think there's a lot out there. Some of them don't build up the courage to actually go through. These are your window peepers. These are the people that burglarize, take panties, and do other things along this line. But never go to the stage of actually murdering. But they're out there.
So let's talk about anything we can do to keep ourselves safe from these.
The biggest thing we can do, if you look in this situation, for instance, the door was left open, and unlocked. So that was a big problem. You have to lock your doors. Cameras are always important. Look, if a guy has a choice between going into a place that has cameras and dogs, they're not going to go necessarily. Although Murphy, the small dog, the Labradoodle, who was a puppy at the time, was there. But cameras, lock your doors, pay attention to who might be following you and who might be outside your door at any time.
Do people like this think that they're bad guys? Do they know that they're bad guys? I mean, they know they're breaking the law, but do they think of themselves as a bad person?
These people don't care. They have no empathy. They have no thought of what they're doing other than the power trip that it gives them and the sexual gratification.
Was there a sexual angle to this one?
Well, no, from the standpoint of nobody was sexually attacked. But personally, I believe, and many others do, that was the whole motivation for this. This was a sexually motivated, meaning that power that is gained when you sexually assault somebody. He just didn't get to it. I think his whole plan was foiled when Kaylee Gonzalez was in the bed with Maddie Mogen.
All right. Well, this is some bone-chilling stuff. I appreciate your insight on this. You must have seen some terrible things in 28 years of the FBI. So thanks for sharing it with us. Jennifer Coffindaffer. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Where do we find your work outside of WBAP? You got a podcast?
I do. Break the Case with Jen Coffindaffer, and also on X, Coffindaffer FBI.
There you go. Break the Case is the podcast. She's got a ton of good followers over here on X. Find her there, Coffindaffer FBI. Thank you, Jennifer. It's Richard in Collinsville. You're on WBAP.
I think that I have a little experience transporting the criminally insane from San Antonio up to Vernon State Hospital.
But was this your job for a while?
Yeah, I was a deputy and worked criminal warrants for about 18 years as part of that. And
so you took bus rides with psychos like this on a daily basis? Oh, my goodness.
It wasn't a bus. It was generally a car or a small van. And the two things I learned about these so-called psychotic people is that, number one, a psychotic murderer does it for pleasure. It makes them feel good. They get high. It's almost like having sex and reaching a climax with them. It's that much of a high. Now, as far as the motive is concerned, that's it, pleasure. As far as how they go about doing it, it's random because they're impulsive. They drive around like burglars. I remember I've transported a bunch of burglars, and they used to tell me the same thing. They're driving down the street, and they see a house, and they say, I think I'll hit that house. And that's how they pick the house. Well, these psychotic people like him, they do the same thing. He didn't sit around planning that for a long period of time. It was impulsive, and they had not locked their door. They had an open door, and that's how he got in. So the number one thing you want to do, if you've got a patio door, you want to take a piece of wood and drop it down in the track so that the door cannot be opened no matter what, because they're easy to break in. Patio doors, if you break into it, it's easy to defeat the lock. But if you've got that board down there in the track, they can't get it open. That's the single most important thing is to keep your house locked.
Well, before you get to the second thing, Richard, that's kind of scary because I live in a very small town and we don't lock our doors.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but if you look at Ted Bundy's career, he liked small towns.
Thanks. I feel great. I appreciate that, Richard.
Well, there you go. That's all I can tell you.
Well, this happened in a small town, too, where I imagine locking your doors isn't really an imperative thing. Like where I live, I hate to just spill all the beans here. We barely lock our cars. Like when I go in the grocery store in Buck Tussle, I don't lock my car.
Right.
And it's not like we're better people. You just can't get away with crime out there. Like, hey, did you see?
I'll tell you the difference. The difference is there was a death penalty at one time. Now, they say, and you know who they are, they say, oh, well, the death penalty, it doesn't work. It doesn't really work. Well, first of all,
it did.
They're not serial killers. They're serial murderers. That's number one, because they're killing without cause.
Okay.
And the second thing is the punishment is not to discourage anybody. The punishment is to punish the individual for the crime in an appropriate manner. And that means if they murder like this guy does or like some people do, they should get the death penalty. Boom, and carry it out within a month or two, unless there's some doubt. If there's reasonable doubt about it, then you don't want to execute them. But otherwise, they should be executed within 30 to 60 days after the trial is over. I guarantee you that has an effect, because I've handled guys at death. I've delivered 3 to death row, and I've picked a couple up coming back from death row. I remember one kid we brought back. He had calluses all over his knuckles, and I asked him. I said, "What's with the calluses?" He said, "I'm going crazy, man, in solitary confinement. So I hit the wall with my fist, so I don't go crazy." I mean, these guys do what they can to survive, and he's the same guy. He was a young kid, about 25. We had to stop, take him to restrooms and things like that. And we had places picked out that were never real busy that we could go in and they could use the restroom. And this kid, I'm walking him through the place to go to the restroom, and he says, "Hey, boss, what do you want?" I said, "What?" He said, "What do you want, boss?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I'll get you something, man. I'm going to jail. What difference does it make?"
So was he going to shoplift on your behalf?
Yeah.
Jesus. All right. So these people, do they know if they're good or bad?
Oh, yeah, they know they're bad. They know it 100%. If you watch the way if you look at the videos of him arriving, and then you look at the videos of him leaving, his departure was not like his arrival. He knew he had done something really bad and really wrong. And they do a good job of hiding over a period of years because what they do is random. And there is no telltale motive other than it makes them feel good.
Do you believe in demons after seeing all these guys?
Oh yeah. There's evil that possesses people. There's no question about that in my mind. Yeah. Like one guy he whacked his mother 34 times with an axe.
Jesus.
Can you imagine what that looked like? And I called him 3-bag because he would throw up 3 times, bringing him from Vernon back to San Antonio. Because once a year, the court would have them bring these guys back, and they would have to be evaluated in the court to determine if they were mentally capable of standing trial or if they needed to go back to Vernon. And he would throw up 3 times on his way back to San Antonio because he was afraid he was going to be found capable of standing trial, which meant he would be convicted. And if so, he would go to Rusk, which is where they have the prison for the mentally insane.
Yeah, I know Rusk.
That's the worst prison in Texas.
Yeah, when I was growing up, we used to say, so and so had to go live with his grandparents, and his mom went to Rusk. It was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest where we're from. Well, it was a nice, scary chat with you, Richard. I'm not sure you made me feel better, but your expertise, very appreciated, sir. Good Lord. That's a job that'll mess with you right there. You have to deal with psychopaths all day, every day for a few decades. Tell me that didn't leave a stain in your cortex somewhere. Jessica, Arlington, you're on WBAP.
Hey, thanks for having me. So I just wanted to point out something. The last guy was saying how he thinks it was a random occurrence and that he just saw a door that was unlocked. Well, I've been following the case for a while, and there's actually some, evidence that he went to the place that Maddie Mogan worked at. She was a waitress, multiple times. He was a regular there. And then also it wouldn't make sense for him to attack as many people. I feel like if he was just going there to appease this, this thing that he was feeling and wanted to kill someone, and then he met the first victim and the second victim, why would he go all the way up to the other room just to attack the other 2 girls?
So what's your theory?
I think that it has to do with something about how you're raised. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to put the blame on the parents, because some people are just born with an emptiness, and that has to be noticed. But, him to have some sort of hatred on women themselves, because he did attack her in a way that she was unrecognizable, the one girl, and everyone else kind of just had kill shots. Here we go. Except for the guy, I don't know. But anyway, I think it has to do with, he never felt like he was he wanted to be powerful. He wanted to feel like he was in control of something. Or maybe she said something to him and it triggered him the wrong way. Maybe she rejected him and he didn't like that. So he didn't want anyone else to have her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't, to me.
One of the scary observations is that these guys who are, so psycho, of course they're going to be socially awkward, and that only makes it worse because are you going to get any positive feedback from the women in your life, from the women in your class, or from the women in your community if you're obviously socially awkward? No. So if they do happen to try and like someone and they get rejected, they can't say, well, there's something wrong with me. Something's wrong with this girl. And then when the next girl does it, well, something's wrong with these 2 girls. But when all women do it, then you think something's wrong with all women. And then when you don't have any guy friends either, something's wrong with all of society. It's all a terrible thing, and I'm going to enjoy inflicting all the pain back at them.
I agree. I think, sorry, I lost what I was thinking about. I waited tables for 10 years. And I've had my fair share of people who, kind of gave me the creeps. You got to treat everybody nice, but don't give them, anything to pull off of. But also be aware of your surroundings. If you think that you're being followed, double check. Before we're saying, lock your doors. You can never be too prepared for something to happen.
Yeah, I think that applies far more to women, though, and I have a tendency to forget that because I also waited tables for quite a few years. And
and you can get robbed as a guy, but you're not really going to get, attacked and stolen for the most part.
No one's trying to rape their waiter. But, the few times that there was a woman waiting for me after work, it actually turned out very well. Thank you very much. I don't want to discourage my fellow man from pursuing these leads here. It's a numbers game, gentlemen. Thank you, Jessica. This is Steve in Weatherford. You're on WBAP.
Hey, James. I think we are long overdue in this country to show by deed and wheel an example that if you're a mass murdering, demon-possessed type, we're going to put you through due process, and 7 days later, found guilty, we'll destroy you.
Oh, I'm a big believer, not only doing the death penalty, but making it quick. And also, I know this sounds a little Byzantine, but making it public. I don't want, it to be on a public billboard so where, kids are going to see it without their parents' permission. But, if we can control who watches the Cowboys game, we can control who watches this.
I watched 2 executions on Saudi TV one time where a 6'8" guy took about a 5-foot-long chrome-plated sword and lopped off the 2 heads of the convicted guys. And it made me say, boy, I'll never even break the speed limit in Saudi Arabia.
Well, I had some friends that were of Arabic origin, and they said in Saudi Arabia, when you park in a parking lot, you can turn off the car and just leave the keys in the driver's seat. No one's going to steal the thing, because if they get caught, they're going to get their hand chopped off or killed. And the converse part to that is, when it's my time to go, if someone's lopping my head off with a giant chrome saber, that's not too bad. That's not, that's better than dying slowly over the 4 months of painful hospice when you're 93.
But we're entering a period in the U.S. where we're getting back to common sense, and the adults are in charge instead of a bunch of lying idiot children type. We're way past time to say, look, you rob a bank, you're going to jail for a long time. You do a mass murder like this, we're going to put you in the ground as soon as the jury decides.
Yeah, I not only do I agree with that, I feel like there's some people that are listening and think, oh, they're just saying the most hyperbolic thing because they're trying to be like the coolest, baddest alpha male in the room. No, we mean this. We need to start doing it. It's an ugly thing. We're not going to enjoy it. But ever since we stopped doing it, there's been a huge incentive that's been taken away. This guy gets to live a luxurious lifestyle. He's going to get to watch TV and read books and feel sunshine on his face and tell his story to other human beings. And he's going to get medical care, and he's going to get dental care, and he's going to live out his life in prison. But it's not that much of a deterrent compared to what if we just lopped his head off? What if his head was already rolling in a basket somewhere right now? Me and Steve and Weatherford are not kidding. We need to seriously think about bringing that back.
The James Show Podcast.